I turned 20 years old and I started with extreme pain down my body, fatigue. I was getting a lot of headaches and everything. And so they didn't know what was going on. And eventually I went to one of the top rheumatology places in the country in Mesa, Arizona. And they said, okay, you have fibromyalgia.
Welcome to another episode of Carpe Diem Living the Podcast. I am your host, Sheen Gitmed, and today we're speaking to someone that's actually a neighbor to me. She's in Arizona, but her name's Amanda, and she is going to have a very inspiring story to tell. So I'm really excited to have her on the show. So Amanda, why don't you take it away and tell us about your holistic journey?
So I was actually born 6 weeks early, and I was a very, very, very sick child all the way into my early 20s. And I was sick every 4 to 6 weeks. They didn't know what was going on and everything. And so eventually I graduated high school, and then I did a personal training program. I did a 6-month course, completed that. It was 500 hours. And all of a sudden I turned 20 years old, and I started with extreme fatigue extreme pain down my body, fatigue. I was getting a lot of headaches and everything. And so they didn't know what was going on, of course. And eventually I went to one of the top rheumatology places in the country in Mesa, Arizona. And they said, okay, you have fibromyalgia. I'm like, great, that's a diagnosis. But then that started the rabbit hole of going from trying different things. So I was put on the Cymbalta or you're either putting on Lyrica. And most of you have seen the fibromyalgia commercial on TV where it's all about helping with the fibromyalgia pain and all of that. And a lot of people tell me it does not do anything. And so I don't know why they continue to promote this drug. And then the second thing they recommended was physical therapy. And I did that for about a month and a half. And I did the swimming, I did the weights. But it's sort of funny because I had just completed the personal training program a year ago. How is the physical therapy going to do anything, honestly? And I remember I would come out and I was crying because I was in so much pain. The physical therapy wasn't doing anything. And right next door, there was like a pain management place. So this place they have places like this across the country. So what we said to the rheumatologist, my grandma said, well, should we try that? And the rheumatologist, of course, just says yes. And so we did a consultation, and then they said you need to do 3 treatments. And what they do as a treatment is they take your weight, they take your blood pressure, right? And then you lay down on a table on your stomach. And what they do is with fibromyalgia, there's like different trigger points all down your body. So they touch each one and they'll say, this is hurt, and then they'll draw a circle or with like a permanent marker. They wheel you into a room and they will shoot a huge needle. And I don't remember exactly what was in the needle, but they would shoot it to all these trigger points. And of course you would be awake. So it was extremely painful and stuff. Your blood sugar would drop. You would have to have juice. You would have to have cookies. And you would be very lightheaded. And that was supposed to help with the pain. And after 2 treatments, I was done. I was like, I'm not doing a 3rd treatment. I would come out crying. And my grandma would be there and she would drive us home. So I was like, okay, this is done. So I didn't do anything for several months, and eventually my grandmother found a little clipping in the newspaper, and it said a wellness talk by a chiropractor, and it said it was going to happen in a couple days, and he was only 10 minutes away. And this was in Gilbert, Arizona, and he's very well known now. He's been on television shows and stuff for fibromyalgia because he focuses on that. And so I was like, okay, we got to try something. And my grandma went to the talk because I couldn't go to the talk. And he said to her, if she's had fibromyalgia at the age of 20 years old, that she's been very, very sick a long time. A light bulb went off in my grandma's head, and she thought, oh, he really gets it. And she had done nursing and stuff. And so that started 8-month journey with him. And he tested me for food sensitivities, find out I was very sensitive to gluten. I have 2 genes that predispose me, one from each parent. I have a soy allergy sensitivity. I have a dairy. I have eggs. And so that started the path of cutting all of those out and then reintroducing them and seeing how I felt. And that started the journey of me getting better, is him telling me I had all these sensitivities because no one had told me that at that point. And so I think the biggest thing is you can't give up. You have to find the answers. And I'm not saying after 8 months, it took, like, my health was totally better. It still took several years to get back. And I still have a little bit of some little health issues. But I think with your health, you're always working on yourself. So you can't, it's not ever going to be 100%. But at least if you're able to enjoy your family and friends, be able to work, be able to do daily activities, because I couldn't even get off the couch. So you have to think in terms of that. Your health might not always be 100%, but you still want to live a life. So you want to at least get back to 60, 70, whatever. You don't want to be stuck on the couch. And that's what I try to tell people with fibromyalgia. You don't want to get in the victim mode.
Right. Oh, that is such an important statement, that you don't want to get into victim mode. And it's so true, because even for myself, I remember in the very beginning when it just felt like my health was just declining rapidly, right?
Yeah.
You do get into that mindset of like, oh, I'm never going to get better. This is just what my life is going to be like. And it is very depressing, especially when you're still young. If you start getting really sick in your early 20s, you're just like, this isn't your normal 20-year-old experience, you know? You're just kind of like, how is my body already like this sick and this much pain?
So I was actually diagnosed 10 years ago, so I'm actually 30. But I think people need to realize whatever age you are, you can get better with the fibromyalgia. It just might take more time because you might have other health issues on top of the fibromyalgia. So
yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you can't give up. You have to try all different types of things. And, you know, a 10-year journey, I've heard that from so many other people where it's taken them 7 years, 8 years. And honestly, when I look back, I'm like, has it really been that long? Like it kind of flew by in a sense, like in the part where you're still trying to figure it out, it feels very slow. But then once you're on the up and up and you start to see the difference and the result, then you stop counting the years. I stopped counting. And then I look back, I'm like, oh, wow, it's really been that long. But like you said, as long as you can do, you know, like those daily activities, you can still enjoy your friends and family. It is a work in progress. And that's where I always try to tell people too. It's like, it's not like you just stop. Like you're always on your health journey. There's always ways you can improve, maintain, you know, new discoveries. I'm learning new things every day, just like guests like yourself. And it's wonderful. I love that it's so, there's so many levels to this and so complex, and it's just amazing. So what exact like steps did you take as far as once you found out your sensitivities? Did you take any certain herbs? Was there certain methods that you practiced daily to help you?
Not herbs. He did recommend certain supplements and stuff. I eventually found a supplement that helps with the fatigue and stuff and the air, and then I recommend that in my 30-day program. But for me, it's staying away from those foods. I think a lot of times, I think people with fibromyalgia, they're very complex and stuff. So I want people to realize I don't want you on a ton of vitamins. I want you on just the ones that work for you. So I think a lot of times people think, well, all she's going to do is change my diet. And I'm like, it goes way deeper into,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I think it goes way deeper. And the big thing is you don't want to do the research yourself. I've done the research for you, so then you don't have to do it. There's so much stuff out there that's depressing about fibromyalgia.
Misinformation.
And I think our bodies are very complex. So that's why you have to do, that's why I do a 90-minute health history, because I want to know everything about that person, what they're dealing with. And you want to know what people's lifestyles is. If they're still working, then they might be doing better than someone who's not working. So everybody starts at a different place and stuff. I might start with the food, somebody might start with the supplements and stuff. So it all depends on the person. So I think a lot of times we need to get past the point where we can solve our health ourselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, being your own advocate, for sure.
I mean, but I think a lot of times, even with me, I'm happy to, if I don't know something, then I'm happy to find someone who knows about that health concern. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because health is so complex, and I think a lot of times people don't realize that. So I would love to eventually see where we have it's specialized. So if you have diabetes, you go to the diabetes, or if you have hormone issues, go to the hormones.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just going straight to the doctor where they just put you on the medications.
Yes.
Or
it's cringy now to think about. Like, if you have something wrong, you just go to the doctor and they're just like, okay, here's like 3 prescriptions and pick it up from your local pharmacy. And you're just like, oh, like, it makes me sick to my stomach thinking about it.
And then they might say, eat a healthy diet. And then they don't follow up with whatever they recommend sometimes. And I'm like,
well, then you don't get answers.
And then you don't get the accountability. Mm-hmm. I mean, the doctors it's nice that they could do the blood work and stuff like that. Right. But after that point, you want to see if you could find someone who actually can help you with the food choices and the supplements and the lifestyle.
Right. The deep dive. Mm-hmm.
The deep dive. I feel like people think it's just one thing. And I tell people all the time, it's not.
At all.
It's not at all. You have to look at how your lifestyle is, your supplements, your food choices.
Right.
And a lot of times people are on so many medications these days, even if they're young.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't realize everything is so connected.
I don't know if we've been taught in our school system or what, or it's just society. And a lot of it's social media too, as I see a lot of times people just give out random advice about health, and I'm like, that's not going to help them.
Yeah, right. I see it all the time too.
I'm like, especially in the fibromyalgia groups, it's pretty bad. It's very depressing. And I tell people you don't want to get in these groups because they're so depressing. I
Yeah.
can imagine if I was in them 10 years ago, because
Yeah.
then you're stuck. Then
It's true.
I think these people get stuck, and everybody says, well, I've done this and I haven't gotten better and stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah, that might have been for your body.
Yeah.
They're a different person. And a lot of times I think people, if it's supplements, if it's lifestyle changes, if it's going gluten-free, people don't stay on it for long enough.
Right. They're
And
not consistent with making
they're
those
not,
changes.
no. And I always say one molecule of gluten could stay in your body for up to weeks, up to months. So if you cheat, that's doing a disservice to yourself. So
True. Yeah.
and I think a lot of times now with our go gluten-free and everything, it's sort of like, well, everybody says they've tried it and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but how long did you try it for? Did you only try it for like a week?
Yeah. It's not an instant thing. Like you have to go through it. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times I think people think it's an instant thing. And then once in a while you might feel a teeny bit better or something. But if you're on so many medications and you're going gluten-free, it's all just it's a combination of things. And maybe like me, you have to be off of everything.
Just rip the Band-Aid off. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to do all of it all at once. And I think a lot of times I think people just go gluten-free and they might go dairy-free. But I don't know about the eggs. I don't think people do that with eggs or soy. But soy is in every single thing I am telling you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even in like teas and stuff. So I don't think people actually look at the products they're buying and see, oh, it might have soy, it might have gluten in it or whatever.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, I think people just think, oh, it's one thing. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And then people think they might be totally perfect and stuff with it. And then I'm like, well, there's so many products nowadays where it's in it.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's touch on that. That way, if people don't know, about what's going on with soy. So as a registered holistic nutritionist, what would you tell people as to why they should stay away from soy?
for soy, I don't, I just honestly, I don't feel like it's the greatest thing for people to have in their diets, honestly. It's not something, I don't think people need it, honestly, but if you have soy in your diet, there's a great product, I don't know if people know about it. It's called coconut aminos.
I've heard.
Yeah, and it actually takes the place of soy and stuff. But just cut back. I think a lot of times you could cut back with any of these products, but if you really want to make a difference with your health, then you go down the elimination plan, which I have a whole program that goes into that, but I think the more important thing is for people to actually realize you need to do a phone call with me first to see what step you need to do, because you might not have to do an elimination diet right away.
Yeah, everyone's situation is very situational. Everyone has a different circumstance. Yeah,
and that's totally why I offer a free 45-minute phone call just to discuss your health issues and my services with people with fibromyalgia. If I think you're the perfect fit for me, then I will tell you and stuff. And then I'll tell you what I think is better. If it's my 30-day program or my one-on-one services, elimination diet plan, that's always down the road. So
Yeah.
it all just depends on how much support you need too.
True.
Because with one-on-one, then it's a lot more support. We're doing follow-up phone calls. I'm
Yeah.
emailing you. I'm doing
Yeah.
whatever I'm doing. I'm giving you the recommendations. So it's all up to that person, what they want to do. I just want people to know I can help them.
Yes, definitely.
And they don't have to be stuck. They don't have to be
Yeah.
stuck on that couch.
Yeah.
In fatigue, pain, or sleep issues, because a lot of times with fibromyalgia, they're not sleeping. Or they feel like a truck has hit them when they get up in the morning, and they don't get that deep REM sleep, which I talk about because it's a big topic with the fibromyalgia community. And so that's why I have a free sleep guide for anyone who wants to sign up for that. That's on my website.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the person that I knew of that had fibromyalgia, I remember she was such a night owl, always up at all hours of the night. During the day, she was sleeping. And it was hard because I remember she had 2 kids. Luckily, they were a lot older at this point, but she couldn't work. Like she had to, be at home. And I felt so bad because at that time, like I was telling you before this recording, I didn't have any advice to give her. I was just, a listening ear. And I want to touch base about the groups, like just to comment on that, because I know exactly what you're talking about when of course we use the internet for a lot of things. And one of them is to find support groups, and I'm not knocking them at all. I think it's nice to find community and to try to relate with someone else that's going through what you're going through as well. But if you're in the groups that are promoting things that aren't helpful, or it is very negative, not so much negative, it's more like there is a lot of victimizing in there, and it's just kind of like, well, if you want to get better, you have to go far and wide, right? And it's for me, for instance, when I was really dealing with eczema, like when I first started dealing with eczema a couple of years ago, I joined an eczema community group. And all you would see is like, oh, try this steroid or this. And now knowing what I know now, I'm just like, I'm like, why in the world would I ever be, like, this is just all bad advice. Like, this isn't going to help, like, at all. So now, like, when I do pop into those groups, I do try to mention something holistic in there. I'm like, hey, that steroid cream is probably not your best choice, because you don't want to push anything on anyone, right? You just want to inform. So just to spread awareness, but not in like a pushy way, because that's never the approach, because then people get turned off by that. But yeah, I'm just kind of like, like if you only knew. So that way you don't have to deal with this anymore. So
yeah, that's how I was with the fibro groups.
Yeah.
I still share my podcast episodes in those groups and stuff, but and then if people like them, I'll reach out and ask them how they're doing with their fibro and stuff. But they're very Debbie down. They're very negative.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, there's answers. And I think a lot of times, people with fibromyalgia have been told so many things.
Yeah.
By people who aren't experts, along with people who are supposed to be experts, like the rheumatology people. And usually people with fibromyalgia get diagnosed by a rheumatologist or their primary doctor.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, I call that rheumatology place. They're not taking patients anymore. So
really, wow.
Yeah. So this was just in the last 6 months. I called them just to see but it's interesting. But yeah, so I really recommend you getting out of those fibro groups, because they're really not the best thing.
Yeah.
And you could always start listening to my podcast and friend me and start doing stuff like that, because that's a big thing that you should do, is to get yourself better. You want to get yourself better so you can have a life again, I always say.
Right. Oh, that's so true. And
Yeah.
I hear that because I remember for me, that was my biggest motivation was like, I have so many things I want to do in life. There's no
Yeah.
way I'm going to be held back because of this. Like, this is so
Yeah.
crazy. Like, and it only made me more angry over time. Like when, I was on my journey, because I'm like, what is going on? Like, why am I not, like, this is crazy. And yeah, I know nutrition is like the number one thing because of course, if all you're eating is processed, you're not going to feel good because your body wasn't made to eat all this processed things. Like, and I believe in moderation. So of course, if you want to have a treat here and there, fine. But I really think it should be more like a 90-10, like 90% of the time you eat really clean. And then
Right.
if you want to have that, cheap snack or whatever, cool. And, of course, do what works best for you. Like me personally, like, like I'll give you an example. So like my parents, they make a lot of like soups. It's a Filipino thing, but they like to boil, like fish and veggies. And I don't like my greens all like in a soup form or like mushy. Like if I'm eating spinach or something like or bok choy, like I want that like steamed or I want it like crunchy. So it's like, of course, whatever form you'll eat your veggies, do it. If you have to blend it in a smoothie, do it. It doesn't matter. As long as you consume it, that's the most important thing. So that's wonderful. So with fibromyalgia, I do have a question. Is there certain foods that you eat that help with any of the symptoms? I'm curious.
That's a good question. So there's always certain foods that can help you with like energy and stuff. But the biggest thing is I think eating clean is very big.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, I mean, sugar can affect you. Sugar is not the greatest for pain and stuff like that. But I always tell people it's not a diet. I don't want people, I'm never going to say, oh, you should follow such and such diet. Honestly, we're going to look at your health history. We're going to see what you're eating, and maybe we add some more vegetables. Maybe you're not eating enough vegetables. Maybe you're not eating enough fruit.
Mm-hmm.
It has to work for the person who's following the plan, because if it's not, then we don't want to go back to being sick and tired.
Right.
And on the couch. So I always tell people, you have to do the recommendations. I could recommend as much as you want. I could recommend every single thing to help you. But if you can't follow the first couple steps, then I'm not going to give you more recommendations. You have to start at least with the first couple before and I always don't in the beginning, I start super slow. So it might be just this one supplement. And a lot of my recommendations aren't going to take too much time.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, you might not be cooking as much, because a lot of people with fibromyalgia, they're like, well, all I want to do is get back so I could start cooking again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great goal. But it's going to take some time to get up to doing that goal.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is you have to know that I'll give you the support you need. I'll give you the recommendations you need.
Yeah.
You just have to follow through.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing.
Yeah. And you've been there, so you know exactly what
and I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with me, I think I was at that point, I was so sick, I would do anything to get better. So that's why for me it was easy to go down the do that elimination plan. And now, 10 years later, I mean, I've been off of them since July 2011. So 9 years, over 9 years.
Yeah.
So I know the products, I know every probably question you would ask if you had to get rid of some of those foods.
Yeah.
And there's so many products nowadays. I mean, if you want to have a dessert or whatever, that's fine.
Right. Just don't overdo it.
Just don't overdo it. And maybe the first month or two, you wouldn't want to do some of the things, but after that, if you want to have treats, I don't care. I have treats all the
Yeah.
time. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it's not like you have to, I think the biggest thing is we have to really listen to our body
Yes.
and know how we feel after we eat a food. Because a lot of times I think we don't listen to our body. And
Right.
then we're like, why do I feel so bad? And it's like, well, you did have some cookies early on in the day, or
Yeah.
you didn't eat quite well, or
Yeah.
you didn't have enough protein, or you didn't have enough carbs no wonder you're starving.
Right.
You're not eating enough. Sometimes people don't eat enough at their meals. So
Right. Or if you eat really late and then you go
yeah,
to bed on a full stomach, of course you're not going to feel very well in the morning. Like you're going to feel bloated and just, so it's just like certain things. Like, I mean, by now it's like, okay, like you should already have a pretty good idea of how your body works and what makes you feel good,
yeah,
what doesn't. It's just a matter of paying more attention and taking note of it and applying something better. I think that's like,
yeah. And then that's why you have health coaches, nutritionists, whatever. They can
yeah.
help you keep track of that and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
they can say, oh, I want you to track your food for a few days just to see how you feel. Because I'm not about counting calories or anything like
Yeah.
that.
It's
It's
more
just,
to what you're eating. Yeah.
it's more, I'm always more about what are you eating? How
Right.
is it making you feel? And then it's also like with supplements, I think a lot of times we take supplements. We have no idea when we started to take that supplement.
Yeah.
And maybe we're taking like 5 or 10 different supplements. We don't know, and we're not sure what is working. And
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes people take supplements and maybe the doctor recommended it and they don't really know why they're taking the supplement. I
Mm-hmm.
always like to tell people why you're taking the supplement. And
Yeah.
I
That's
think
clear.
sometimes, yeah, and a lot of times maybe you're not taking enough of that supplement and stuff. So you have to realize health is very complex. I always tell people it's not a one thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we hire the experts.
Yeah, right, right. I've worked with so many different
Yeah,
naturopathic doctors,
yeah,
specialists in detoxification or herbology. Like I'm all about it. I'm actually about to do another cleanse.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm about to do another cleanse because I take a lot of different herbs for different things and it
yeah,
really has improved my health significantly. Like even with like hair, skin and nails, you know, like people usually just take a biotin whatever from the store,
right.
which I don't think they're terrible at all, but if there's an even more natural way of getting the benefits for that, I'm going to do it. So I take herbs, a certain herb mixture for that, as one example. But yeah, I just love that, you know, your niche is helping people through what you've already been through. You know, you're a walking testament. So that's you're giving people hope. And that's the biggest thing is
Yeah.
because a lot of people, especially with, you know, fibromyalgia, they think that once they have this, that's it. They just have to roll over and just let it be. And it's like,
Honest,
no.
yeah, I think a lot of times I think people think it's a death sentence.
Thank you. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, I think in the beginning, maybe they'll decide, oh, straight away they go right onto the Cymbalta or the Lyrica,
Yeah.
which is it's not great
Mm-hmm.
because they've already been suffering for so many decades. A lot of times people don't get diagnosed till they're in their 50s, 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I think at that point they're so tired of being sick and tired, they're just gonna
Yeah.
follow the directions of the doctor. And then I'll tell people, I'll say, well, is the doctor real? They'll say, well, the doctor's helping me. I'm like, well, is it really? You're still dealing with all these other health issues. You're still dealing with the fatigue and pain. That's not really getting any help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think that they're just so addicted to the medications
Yeah.
and I think we put the doctors on a pedestal and think the
Yeah.
doctors know all the answers.
Yeah.
And they most of the time we get the doctors just tell us, oh, you could go to another doctor or we get referred off and stuff.
Yeah.
So then you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm so tired of this.
Running in circles.
Yeah, you're just so tired of it that you get to a point where I think a lot of people are like, well, I'm just gonna stop, and I'm just gonna say, a lot of times people will say to me, I'm okay. And I'm like, that is a very vague answer. I mean, I think people with fibromyalgia get to a point where they just don't want to share what they're feeling and stuff.
Because they're just so used to it. They're just like, oh, it's just
Yeah,
another day. It's the norm.
yeah, like family and friends maybe they don't believe them, and
because it's like an invisible illness.
It's an invisible illness, because you could look at anybody and you wouldn't know they had fibromyalgia.
No, it's not obvious at all. Yeah.
Not obvious. And so I think people just get to the point where they're like, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're not, I always ask, well, are you really okay? Are you still in pain? Are you still sleeping not right? And you still have the fatigue? And then they'll always come back. 100% of the time they'll say, oh yeah, I'm still dealing with that.
Right.
I think it's just you have to get your mindset to a point where you're not going to quit.
Yes.
And I think that was me. That was my mindset, was I was not going to quit. Luckily, I had my grandma, my mom, who were they wanted me to get better. So I think you have to, if you can, you have to find people who want you to get better too.
Yes.
Because you need that support and stuff. So.
And now you do it for people all over the world. So that's perfect. You're that person for them.
Yeah, and I'm the person for them if they don't have that family member. I think a lot of times people say to me, well, my family member recommended this, like to juice or whatever. I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
But the family member's not a nutritionist who specializes with people with fibromyalgia.
Yeah.
So it's great to get advice from your family, but just realize they're not a health expert. They didn't go and do schooling for this and stuff. So you have to, like with any other job in the world, everybody does some sort of, if it's not college, it's certifications, or it's whatever, it's trade school. You had to have some sort of training.
Right. Yes, I 100% agree. And I'm just so excited for, the listeners, anyone who can relate to this or knows a friend or family member that is dealing with fibromyalgia. There are people like Amanda that can help. So let's tell our listeners on where they can find you online and connect with you.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook. It's Amanda Lise Love. It's my full name. I have a podcast called Fibromyalgia Real Solutions with Amanda Love, and it's been out since May of 2019, and there's 32 episodes, and on a variety of topics. You can learn more about my story in episode 2 or 31. I have an episode that talks about what is a registered listing nutritionist, so that if you want to learn about that. And episode 5 talks about sleep, so that's a big episode. So there's a variety of topics, so you guys could check that out. And the biggest thing is I have my website, and that's Amanda Lise Love too, where you can sign up for that free sleep guide on my homepage. And that's where you could also book your 45-minute phone call if you want to talk with me.
Wonderful. And all of her links will be in the description box below, of course, and in our Podcast Insiders group where you can connect with all of our guests. So thank you all again for listening, and we'll catch you all next time. Thank you.